Hello everyone, welcome to Coder and Boots. So in this video, we are going to discuss about how to manage AWS EC2 instances using Python Boto3. Okay, so you might be familiar with managing the EC2 and AWS services using the console. So this is the programmatic way of one of the programmatic ways to control or manage AWS services. So today we will be discussing about how to manage EC2 service using Python Boto3. So Boto3 is basically the AWS SDK for Python, and it covers all the AWS services, and also it covers almost all the operations that is available within each service. So we just need to invoke the required corresponding function to make the operation work. Okay, so here in this video we are going to cover these operations using programs. So it's not just limited to this. What I'll do is I'll explain you how to leverage or how to deal with the remaining set of operations as well, because the complete list is a lot. So because EC2 service, it's a very popular service and there are a lot of options. Because it is EC2, it includes like volumes, AMIs, security groups. There are a lot of related services associated with this EC2 APIs. Okay, so I'll show you like how you can make this work so that you will get enabled for or making or programs based on your requirement. Okay, so let's get into the session. So first what we'll do is we'll see how we can create an EC2 key pair. So because the key pair is something that we use for authenticating the default authentication for Linux based EC2 instances. So we need to generate this key pair in the console. So basically if you go to the AWS console on EC2 service, let's go to EC2 service. So on the left hand side, if you see, there is something called under network and security, we have something called key pair. So key pair is a public and private key combination. So it has a public key as well as private key. So the private key is something that we manage and the public key is something that will be present in the server. So we authenticate with that and that is what makes a successful entry or login to the machine. So right now if you see in this account, there is no key pair available here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a key pair on AWS using Python program. So if you see this Boto3 documentation, so if you go to maybe you can just search for Boto3 Python, Boto3 Python EC2. So just search for this particular keyword Boto3 Python EC2. You will get this particular documentation and that will take you to the EC2 client. Okay, so it has a lot of functionalities. Okay, so if you see, these are the available methods, right? Under this you can see it's more than 100. Okay, so there are a lot of methods available under this, and if you search for create key, okay, key pair, so you will see the option create key pair. Okay, so this is how we need to call this particular function. There are a lot of arguments to it. So what we will do is we will frame the request first. Okay, so let's copy this. So and before getting into this, okay, so we need to install the Python package Boto3. So the installation method is already explained in my previous videos. It is very simple. It's a Python package, so you can just do pip install Boto3. Okay, that will take care of the installation. Second thing is you need AWS access key ID, AWS secret access key for authenticating. So that you have to generate it from your AWS console. So you have to go to your IAM. And then I would recommend never create any key access key, secret key from root account. So you always create it from an IAM user which has a specific permission. So that the permission will be limited to what you're granting. Otherwise it will have the entire account level permission. Okay, and under the user account you will see a security section. So and under the security section you can create access keys. So there are different ways to authenticate. So one of the method is access key, but we can use IAM roles, we can use session token, we can use several other methods as well, certificate based, like if you are running it from a third party service, there is a different way of attaching IAM roles, etc. So to make it simple, I am using or keep it simple, I am using the AWS access key ID and the AWS secret key. So and as it is sensitive information, I am just passing it with the help of some variable. So the function is first is like, we need to create an EC2 instance client. Okay, so EC2 client equal to Boto3.client, and then the service name EC2, then we need to pass the access key, secret key, then region. Okay, so I'm using the US East one, which is the North Virginia region. So now what we'll do is we'll paste the function that we received from the Boto3 page. So no, it's a EC2 client, right? EC2 client dot create key pair. So key name, I am going to create coder in boots key. Okay, so this is the key, and the key type, this is the encryption type. I am going to use RSA. Okay, and the specification, I am not going to use any resource type specification, so I'll keep it. So this tag specification, this is an optional thing, I'll maybe remove this. And then the response, the key format. Okay, so key format, PEM and PPK. PPK is the putty private key format. PEM is like, usually the certificate comes in the PEM format. Okay, so you can choose any of this option, and if you get, let's say, PPK, you can convert it to PEM, and if you are getting PEM, you can convert it to PPK as well. There is something called PuttyGen. There is a software available called PuttyGen. You can use that to generate this. Dry run. So dry run is basically, let's say if you are keeping dry run as true, this will not make the actual request. This will just try out whether you have the right permission to do this operation. Okay, so that is what it will do. And as a response, if you see this functionality as a response, this is the request structure. Okay, this is the request syntax, and as a response, what we will get is basically the key name, okay, key fingerprint, and the key material. So we will have the actual key generated, and the response will be coming out. So if you don't capture the response, what will happen? So it will only come once. Okay, these keys are very sensitive information, right? So it will only get generated once. So if you don't capture, you will lose it. That's the thing. Okay, so let's generate it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create it with maybe PEM format. Okay, so that's the idea. So I'm going to create it with PEM format, and then I'm going to print the response. Okay, so I think the syntax is all fine. So let's run it. Run main EC2. So now you see the response got generated, and you see key pair ID key. Okay, so then key name coder in boots key, that is what I have passed. Key fingerprint, it gave the fingerprint. Okay, this is something that we use to verify the key pair, whether a key pair matches or not, right? We can use this fingerprint to verify that. Then key material, so as I requested for PEM, so what you see as the key material, this is basically the private key. Okay, so this is the private key, and this is a sensitive information. Okay, so that has the entire private key content. Okay, so that means the key got generated. Let's go to our AWS console and see what happened over there. So let's refresh this. Now you see it created, and you see the fingerprint 4C something, right? So you will see the same fingerprint over here as well. This is what we have over here. So if you see 4C7039, so that same fingerprint. Okay, so the key got generated, key ID is the same. So this is how we create a key. Okay, similar to creating the key pair, we will have delete key pair as well. Let's search for key. Okay, so you see delete key pair. So what we need to pass? We need to pass key name, key pair ID. Okay, so this is a simple request, so we can delete the key pair as well very easily. Okay, so this is how we delete the key. Now next option is what we are going to discuss is how to create an EC2 instance or launch an EC2 instance. So what we will do, we will go back to the AWS EC2 instance documentation, and then here the launch EC2 or the create EC2 instance, the function name is not create EC2. Okay, so or create instance. So here the function name is, it is run instance. Okay, run instance. Okay, so you will see something called run instance, and here it accepts a lot of arguments. So because EC2 has a lot of properties, right? So basically if you see from the top, so one is the block device mapping. So this is all about the disk mappings. Okay, disk related configurations, everything. Second is the image ID. So this is basically the image, the AMI to be used for provisioning the EC2 instance. Then the third one is important. This is a mandatory one, Okay, so block device mapping, if you don't give, it will basically get provisioned with a default disk. Okay, then next is image ID. Then image ID is important because it needs to know from which, basically CentOS or Red Hat or Ubuntu, Amazon AMI. So whatever AMI you are choosing, right? So that is what gets provisioned. So image ID is important. Instance type. This is basically the type of the instance that you're going to provision. So this defines the size, okay, and the CPU architecture. Then the IPv6 address count. IPv6, this is basically related to the IPv6 addresses. Kernel ID, key name. So this is the key name, the key pair name that we use for logging in, right? So this is the key name. So if you don't use a key name, what will happen is it will get provisioned, but you will not be able to log in. Then max count. This is like, number of instances that you are provisioning. Okay. So then monitoring, enabled or not. So this is basically the CloudWatch. So this is the parameter that we set for that. Placement. So this is basically the placement related settings, right? So shared tenancy, or so that is what defined over here. Then secure RAM disk ID, then security groups. Okay, security group IDs, security groups, right? Then this defines like the security settings, the inbound, outbound port. Okay, so that is all defined in the security groups. So those are configured here. Subnet ID. So this is the network. So which subnet we need to provision this. User data, this is basically the bootstrap script. We can pass a shell script as a string to this user data, so that whenever the instance gets provisioned, so it will execute the shell script on the machine. So what will happen is once you provision the machine, let's say if you want to install some packages or maybe to make some changes, you can pass this as a script and it will get executed at the time of provisioning. Okay, so then GPU related configuration, tags, okay, launch template, instance marketplace options. There are a lot of basically this is something that defines the sport and on-demand instance. Okay, reservation. There are a lot of other configurations. Okay, so whatever you see on the console, everything is available to here as a configuration. So what we will do is we will take a simplified configuration for this. So we don't really need to pass all these to provision. So depending upon what you need or what you want to configure, you choose those. Okay, so it's like simple configuration versus basics, advanced. Okay, so here what I have done is I have created a very simple function. So this is like the EC2 run instance image ID. So what I have done is image ID, I have gone to the AMIs under here. So no, not here. So in the EC2 instance under AMI catalog, I went there. Then here you see the quick start AMIs, right? So from there I have taken the Amazon Linux AMI. So here you can copy the AMI ID. So the AMI ID I copied. Next is I need to work with the subnet, right? So we need the subnet ID. So subnet ID, if you go to the VPCs, under that you will see subnets. So this subnet comes under the VPC. So under subnet you can take the subnet ID, and this you can use it as the subnet ID. This is important. Okay, so then instance type, I am choosing like the T2 micro. Then max count, min count, I just made it 1. So this is, I just want to provision 1. Monitoring, I just made it like enabled equal to false. Disk related configuration and all, I kept it all default so that it will get provisioned with the default instance. Okay, so let's try running this. So the goal is basically to get maybe what we'll do is we'll just pass the key name as well, so that it will use our key, whatever we have used for provisioning or creating the whatever we created some time back, right? So that is what we will pass. So let's see the key variable. So run instance, and then yeah, it's a key name. Okay, so what I'll just pass key name equal to coder inputs key, comma. Okay, monitoring enabled subnet. So all these configured. Okay, so I just I'm just going to remove this as well. So EC2 client dot run instance AMI ID, and then instance type, max count. Okay, then key, monitoring, subnet, response. Let's print. Let's run this. So now you see it provisioned something and it responded something, right? Instances, in this instances, what we can see, there is a client token, there is instance ID is there, attachment ID, delete on termination. So lot of other configuration, and you can see the entire instance details over here. Let's go back to the EC2 console. Previously there were no instances running. Okay, so now let's see. Okay, now you see there is something running now, and it is in the initializing status. It is just getting started. Okay, so this is so a lot of things are by default, so because we didn't pass a lot of things, right? So but if you see the key, order and boots key, okay, and it is just getting started. Okay, so it's just getting started, running state, and these are the details related to this particular instance. Okay, let's play around this and do some operations on this instance. Okay, so this is the instance ID. So what we will do is we will copy this instance ID so that we can do and play around with it. So let's copy and paste it to our notepad. Now what we are going to do is, what is the next operation that we have listed? We are going to modify the instance type. So modify the instance type. So here if you see in this list, okay, in the EC2 instance list, there is something called modify modify instance attribute. Okay, so modify instance attribute. So there are a lot of attributes associated with an instance, so we can modify those attributes using this function. So it is not just to resize, we can use it for modifying these many attributes. So what I am going to do is I am going to use or leverage this function to resize the instance. So here the attribute I'll take instance type. Okay, and value I'll take the value as the new type. Okay, so right now it is T2 micro, right? I am going to take T2 nano. Okay, and then instance type, then values, like I mean the attribute instance type, and the value I'm going to put the value. Okay, then remaining things I'll not use any of those remaining parameters. Let it be default. So let's clean up this this function. Okay, maybe I'll paste it to the over here itself. Okay, so here what we will do is let's remove all these unwanted things. Instance initiated, okay, user data kernel, till here I am removing. Instance type value equal to T2 nano, and disable termination. This is not really required. I'm not going to make any changes to this. Termination protection, that is what I mean. It is block devices, let it be access, and then instance ID. Instance ID is something that we need, so we will use the instance ID that we got previously, and instance ID we will pass it here. Then dry run false, it's a boolean value, and disable API stop, remove it. Source destination check, remove it. Then this is the EC2 client. Okay, then instance type. Okay, instance type value T2 nano. Let's see whether this is fine or not. So our current value is T2 micro. I'm trying to change it to T2 nano. Let's see whether there is any problem with this function. Okay, so it is running. So I think it will wait for the instance to change. Let's refresh. So previously it was T2 micro. Now let's see what happens with this function. So one more thing is, let's see there. So it is showing an error record while calling modify instance attribute, and internal error occurred, right? So one more thing is, I think this functionality won't work whenever an instance is in running state. Okay, we need to stop the instance first before changing this size attribute. Okay, so what we'll do is we will try the stop operation first, then we'll try this resize operation, because the instance need to be in the stopped state. So let's try the other operations before this. So what is the other operation? So we will stop. Okay, so we will stop the instance. Then now what we'll do is id. Okay, so stop instance. So in the stop instances, it is a simple mechanism. So what we need is we just need to pass stop. Okay, EC2 client stop instance, and we just need to pass the instance ID. So here I am going to pass the instance ID, and hibernate root dry run, no, dry run is false, and then force stop is not really required. I think it will stop. So now hibernate will remove. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so now you see stopping instances instance ID, and it is in the stopping state. Okay, it gave the response. Let's go back to the AWS console and let's refresh the image. Now you see it is in stopping state. So in few minutes it will be in the stopped state, because it will take some time to stop. Stopping is not terminating, so this is like we are just stopping it. Okay, so the volumes will be active, and the instance can be restored to the previous state once we start it back. Okay, so it takes some time to stop. So in the meantime, what we will do is we will do something called list instances. Okay, let's say if you want to list the EC2 instances, so what we can do is there is something called describe. Okay, so this describe activity, it's a paginated activity. Okay, so what it will do is it will because it's a, if there are hundreds of EC2 instances running in your account, so then it will be giving a lot, right? The response will be coming as a lot. Okay, so that's why, like, I mean, the response, if you see, it is a paginated response. So let's see. Okay, so that's why if you see in this they're showing a warning. We strongly recommend to use only paginated request. Okay, unpaginated because as the response contains multiple things, right? Multiple let's say if you have hundreds of EC2 instances, then we need to paginate. Okay, so that is a recommended approach. So I am using, there are two methods. One is like the non-paginated method, and second is the paginated method. Okay, so this is the non-paginated one, but if you see, there is, if you scroll down further in the documentation, there is something called paginators. Okay, in the paginators there is a functionality like describe instances. So I think over here, so if you see, they are explaining how to create this paginator. So paginator client.get paginator describe instances. This client is what the EC2 client. Then paginator.paginate instance IDs. So this basically gives a paginator instance. So we just need to iterate over that and then get the data. Okay, so whatever, like, I mean, the list of EC2 instances, right? That is what we will get it from there. So now let's try with the EC2 instance describe. Okay, EC2 client.describe, and this instance ID I am passing it here, and dry run false. And filters, let's say if you want to filter the instances by basically, let's say, some tag or name or something, you can use this. But if you don't specify anything, it will list everything by default, right? Okay, so then next token and all not really required. So max results by default, I mean, it is 123. Let it be like that. I'm just running here. So right now, okay, wait. So I'm just removing the max results parameter. It's saying, yeah. Okay, and another thing, so here this is basically to describe a specific instance. Okay, let's say if I am not passing the instance IDs at all, okay, if I don't pass this instance IDs, what will happen is it will list everything. Okay, so whatever is available, so it will list everything. So if you see right now, I just passed the empty, because if you want to describe the details of a specific instance ID, you can pass the instance ID. Otherwise, you can pass the filter condition. If you don't pass anything, what will happen? It will list everything. That is what you see here. Reservation ID, that is giving. Then you see the details of our instances. In the instances list, you see it is a list. It is a list of, maybe I'll response of reservations. It's a list, and okay, response of reservations, okay, of reservations. So let's print what is it, and then we will take the next level. So now, okay, this is a list again, okay, and inside the reservations of 0, okay, and inside that we have to take the instances, right? Instances. See, we will get the details of the you see, now we have the instance details, okay. So if there are multiple instances, we will get the details of multiple instances. You can just use the JSON like path method, okay. So you can just use the JSON technique to iterate over this JSON and get the required information. So you can even use the AWS CLI as well. So depending upon what is your preferred choice, right, you can leverage the required function to grab the details of EC2 instance. So we described it. Now let's go and verify the state of the instance, okay. So previously it was stopping, now it is stopped, okay. Now what we'll do is, let's try to modify that instance, okay. So let's try to modify that instance. So previously we just tried modifying it. It didn't work because it was kind of giving error because it was running. So let's see. Max retries 4. What is this telling? Operation name has some problem. Instance type, modify EC2. Let's figure it out. Instance attribute and modify instance attribute, source destination check, instance ID we have passed, then instance type attribute we are passing, then value string, so AWS C2 T2 nano. T2 nano is there, okay. So T2 nano is the right instance. Maybe let's try commenting this. Okay, yeah, so I think the request went through. So let's see what happened to our instance. Okay, now you see the instance type got changed. Basically this particular argument was not really required, the instance type, so the value was only required. It's a simple value. So dry run false, instance ID attribute, instance type, value, target value was T2 nano. So now you see the value got changed, the instance type got changed from D2 micro to T2 nano, okay. And if you start it right now, it will be started with the new type. So now what we'll do is, with one more function we will close this session. So what we will do is, we will terminate, okay. So terminate instances, it is easy. So we just need to pass the instance ID and then run terminate it. We'll pass, what we will do is we'll EC2 client.terminate instance, and our instance ID is this ID, and then try run equal to false. Let's run this. Okay, now you see terminating instances, and it gave something, so the response came. Now let's see the status over here. Okay, now you see shutting down, right? It is getting terminated. Okay, in few minutes it will be terminated. So this is how, like, I mean, we can interact, or this is how we interact with AWS EC2 through Boto. And similarly, you can work with any of these functionalities. You can add security group, create security group, add security rule. I have leveraged, I mean, I have used majority of these functionalities, so I've been using it from several years. So you can try it out. If there are any questions related to this, feel free to comment below this video. I hope this video is useful. Okay, so thank you very much for watching this video. Have a nice day.